Welcome, Stargazers, to the second recap of my Starfield series. This will cover episodes 16 to 30 of the Starfield series. I recommend you go back and watch the first recap before watching this one to make sure you're up to date with the story and that you can have a grand old time, of course. Of course, if you haven't played Starfield, there will be spoilers to the story in this. This is going to be based around my character's choices and my unique Starfield series, which I'm going to summarise for you right now. So, let's begin. Episode 16. Episode 16 begins with us taking our ship down to Suvorov, the planet which has a prison named The Lock on it. It is where Delgado, the leader of the Crimson Fleet, thinks we are going to find at least a clue to something called Crix's legacy, which he has been chasing for years now. On the way to the entrance, we kill a load of little alien bugs, whatever they are, and then we fight even more of them as we get inside. We separate from Delgado for a moment to look for Crix's legacy, and we get separated from him with an icefall.
Can you hear me?
Del!
We couldn't have got stuck with a more annoying person as well. Mathis is an annoying pipsqueak. Mathis gets the bright idea of asking Astra to kill Delgado and replace him as the leader. Astra threatens him in response to this, and Mathis shits himself.
Whoa, hang on.
When searching the prison, we come into contact with a few recordings that confirm that Jasper Crix escaped the place and that the legacy he was chasing is real. One of the recordings is a statement that the legacy is actually a Galbank ship full of credits that went down orbiting a dangerous planet. We eventually find a way out and find a PA that links us back to Delgado, where we receive orders to take one of the prison ships and take that back up to the key. As we approach the ship, however, we are greeted by the Lairs boss. Soon after returning to the key, Delgado burdens us with another mission, this time breaking into the archives of Galbank in New Atlantis. However, in order to do this, we have to infiltrate a cruise ship and steal the credentials of a Galbank employee named Larry Dombrowski. The cruise ship is named the Siren of the Stars, and it is a prestigious ship that hosts an event every time the ship takes flight. Neva, the second in command at Crimson Fleet, orders us to steal the award given at this event. We continue our duties as a double agent and head back to the UC Vigilance to report to Commander Akande on Delgado's plans to have Astra infiltrate the Siren of the Stars. As we dock with the Vigilance, I take the moment to direct your attention to some of Starfield's beautiful physics, though we are blocked by the outro to episode 16.
And next episode.
Episode 17! Episode 17 begins with a continuation of an exquisite representation and demonstration of Starfield's physics. Astra reports to Commander Akande, who is commanded to go along with the Crimson Fleet and infiltrate the Siren of the Stars, to see what Delgado's next move is going to be. In the midst of all this, though, we are still recovering from an attack from the Hunter who killed our beloved Andreja. We arrive at New Atlantis for the first time since it was attacked, and it was still in lockdown. We go straight back to the lodge and retrieve Andreja's belongings, and then Mateo takes us on a weird journey to an even weirder definition of the word unity, which somehow leads us to a planet where a Starborn had been living amongst humans and left writings there. Wow, how convenient. Then quickly we head to complete another one of the 24 temples in Starfield to retrieve another power, and we make way for the Siren of the Stars. We meet our Crimson Fleet contact Rokov, who just happens to also be the captain of the entire ship, so that's pretty handy. And it does provide extra proof that Delgado does have connections in important places. We attend a little do on the Starliner after looking at some wondrous views, and at the party we mingle with some guests, and we find out through our mingling that our target, Larry Dombrowski, has been keeping a mistress. And before we can inquire on stealing the award for Neva, we are blocked by the outro to episode 17.
But I'm going to end this episode here.
Episode
18 plus.
Episode 18 begins with us meeting the woman that is responsible for the safekeeping of the Earth Savior Award. Ironic, since Earth was never saved. Through the episode, we will snag her ID and steal the award. Once we've done that, we head to meet the mistress of our Larry Dombrowski, and we manage to convince her to confess that she is involved in an embezzlement trio stealing funds from Galbank. She gives us all the intel we need on Larry Dombrowski so we can have leverage over him. She also tells us another man was involved in the scheme named Gabriel Vera, We confront Gabriel at the party, who then threatens to have us arrested, so that one didn't go very well. So in order to get Gabriel to confess and give us more info on Larry Dombrowski, we seek help from Rokov to get everyone back to their cabins so we can speak to Gabriel one-on-one. Before we trigger the ship-wide lockdown, we head to the location of the Earth Savior Award, threaten the employee guarding it, and take the award for ourselves. And then we go to this security room, convince the chief to leave, and trigger the lockdown. We then confront Gabriel on his own, who then immediately gives us all of the information we need on Dombrowski. So there and then, still in effect of the lockdown, we decide to go straight to Larry Dombrowski's cabin and confront him. We tell him all of the information we have on him and command him to give us his ID. He stupidly refuses this, so obviously that was the end of Larry Dombrowski. And obviously we took his ID and then escaped the ship, where we would meet Rokov again at the exit. Astra then headed for the main mission and straight for the Galbank archives at New Atlantis. After surviving a terrifying ambush, we find out that the Legacy's last known location was Bannock 4. Astra heads back to the key and tells the leaders of the Crimson Fleet the last known location of the Legacy, and Delgado reveals that he has some top secret intel on a device that the United Colonies are inventing, which is a super high-tech tracking device that can track objects even floating through space. And he doesn't just give us the intel on it, he orders us to go and steal it from a top secret military base. Isn't that great? Straight after we receive those orders, we are pulled aside by Neva and we give her the ward that she orders to steal for her. Once she professes her delight in Astra's abilities, we are blocked by the outro to episode 18.
This is a nationwide announcement that this is the end of the episode.
Episode 19. Episode 19 starts off with an interesting reference.
Welcome, Homo Sapien Deluxe V2.0 Platinum Editions.
What are you doing? Setting up the old GameMX 2063 V2.0 Platinum Edition? The fucking what? The GameMX 2063 V2.0 Platinum Edition?
Astra goes and acquires one more power of the 24, and then heads straight back to the Vigilance to report on his mission aboard the Siren of the Stars, and the death of Larry Dombrowski. We report to Commander Ikande that Delgado knows about the comm spike and his plans to have Astra steal it. Ikande is furious at us for killing Dombrowski and says no more deaths or we're out, though he does order us to go along with Delgado's plan and steal the comm spike with no help whatsoever. Great. So we return to the key to see if anyone has found out where the comm spike is and how we're going to steal it. They tell us it's in a military star station called Base SY-920. And Neva tells us that she has a contact who is a cargo pilot and makes regular stops at military base SY-920 for the soldiers. So we go and meet the contact, and her name is Juan Dayu. We discuss how they're gonna smuggle Astra into the base, and then we meet her the next morning on her ship and make our way to the base, where we find out that Juan can defy gravity. Wow. So we arrive at military base SY-920, and we blend in as a simple dock bay worker. We manage to speak to Juan at multiple intercoms throughout the base as she guides us through. On the way through, we steal the uniform and the identification of a certain Ensign Zuremi. And yes, we manage to pass through the first major checkpoint of the base using the most complex of passwords.
Need your clearance code, Marine.
Hello Kitty 06.
You're clear, Ensign Zeremi.
Once we're through, we enter a back server room and we find out who is responsible for overseeing the comm spike. A man named Dr. Vogel. As we begin the search for him, though, we are blocked by the outro to episode 19.
Here somewhere. Which we're going to find next episode.
Episode 20. Episode 20 continues where episode 19 left off, on the search for Dr. Vogel. We find him and he tells us that the comm spike is actually a module attached to a ship, so we convince him we are a test pilot for that ship and he gives us clearance to go through the next checkpoint. We head straight through, board the ship, and get the f*** out of there.
Bye, have a great time!
Yes. Once we bring the ship back to the key, Delgado tells us that the only way to get near Bannock 4 is to use something similar to the technology of the conduction grid that absorbs the lightning and powers neon. So he tells us to go and steal their plans straight from their headquarters, because why not? Before that though, we go back to Commander Ikande, give him a report and see if he gives us the green light to continue with this mission as before. He does. We meet with yet another Crimson Fleet contact who will help us get into a back entrance and manage to sneak through and steal the plans. Although as we head to that back entrance, we are blocked by the outro to episode 20.
This is the end of the episode.
Well, you should know what's coming here. Episode 21. Episode 21 continues with the whale shark who disappears as we hit him. The first actual thing we do is infiltrate Genodyne headquarters and sneak through the whole building. We steal the conduction grid tech from the server room, but the data is encrypted. So we need a cipher from Brayson Bayou, who is the brother of the man who technically owns Neon, Benjamin Bayou. We confront Brayson Bayou, who gives us his password to his computer so we can obtain the cipher. Willingly, of course. We return the conduction grid tech to the key, though the key is in a state of emergency, as Neva tells us, as the United Colonies appear to be massing their forces together to build up for an attack. Delgado, in the spur of the moment, decides we have what we need in order to acquire Crix's legacy and sends Astra alone to go and retrieve it, and basically says everyone's lives rest on our shoulders. No pressure. Before we head for Bannock 4, we go back to the Vigilance. As we enter the Vigilance, we expect to be congratulated, of course. Though Akande did not like the way we handled ourselves in Genodyne headquarters, and he kicks us out of the United Colonies.
Get off my ship.
Look, making an enemy of Astra is stupid, even for the United Colonies. But leaving Astra's ship equipped with the comspike and the conduction grid tech is even more idiotic. So of course, Astra fearlessly heads straight to Bannock 4, finds the legacy, and boards it. Aboard the ship, we find proof that Jasper Crix was indeed there to try and retrieve the legacy himself, through multiple recordings that we find on the ship. The legacy is indeed there, millions and millions of credits, though before we can enter the vault, we are blocked by the outro to episode 21.
Before we enter the vault, I'm going to end this episode here.
This episode's feeling kinda 22. Episode 22 continues where episode 21 left off, beginning to enter the vault of this huge fricking ship. Once we enter the main room, we behold its wonder.
It's beautiful.
We pass all the cred tanks and go straight to the command room, where we'll be transferring all of those lovely credits to a device that we have. Though all the credits will remain encrypted. Ugh. We find an awesome weapon there that Astra will be using for a lot of the show going forwards. And we find Jasper Crix's body, where we let some slates tell the story of his own demise. We perform the wondrous procedure to transfer all of those juicy credits. And transferring all the credits caused the ship to begin to explode, so we fled as fast as we could. And obviously, because Astra was kicked out of UC SysDef, he brings Crix's legacy back to the key, where he expects to be welcomed with a party. Though Neva kicks us into gear as she tells us that the key is in an even greater state of emergency, as the United Colonies and the Vigilance itself are preparing to attack the key imminently. We hop into our ship with haste, and we are greeted by the fleet of UC SysDef.
How many?
Shit. Though to be honest, we make little work of the fleet, and we get help with a super weapon that brings down the shields of the Vigilance, so we can board that motherfucker. So one last time, we board the Vigilance as a Crimson Fleet member this time, and I decide to save Astra from being shot with the outro of episode 22.
And that is where I'm going to end this episode.
Episode 23. Episode 23 begins with the start of the raid on the Vigilance. During the raid, we meet many of our contacts that we've met across previous episodes. The first being Rokov, and then that annoying prick Mathis. And we'll be meeting other contacts too, but not before we rendezvous with Neva and clear out an entire room blocking the way to the command center. After clearing the room, we meet some more of those contacts, such as Adler Kemp from episode 14 and Juan Dayu. Eventually we do get to the command room and confront Commander Ikande. He triggers a fight, and then that is the end of Commander Ikande. And that, of course, is victory for the Crimson Fleet, so we return to the key and celebrate with their top members. And that is, of course, the Crimson Fleet questline complete, so we head from the key over to Neon to begin a new one. This time for Ryujin Industries. We have an interview which is successful, but our first job is to go and get coffee. Anyway, Astra heads over to that mundane task, and we are blocked by the outro to episode 23.
I'm going to end this episode here.
Episode Episode 24 continues at the coffee shop, and the task shifts from mundane to threatening rather quickly, as we are ambushed by the man who we happened to replace at Ryujin. We manage to talk him down from his anger and report on the situation back to Imogene. After hearing of the incident herself, Imogene decides to give us a promotion as she believes we can handle some more important and discreet jobs for Ryujin. Imogene then proceeds to give us a few trusting jobs that are rather easy though. The first being to hack into and plant a virus on a computer at Kelt Corp. The second job is to go to Laredo Firearms in Aquila City and plant incriminating evidence in their office. And the third job, being quite a tough one, is to retrieve a keycard from a security chief. Astra drinks a bit of alcohol to gain some charisma for this one.
Give me your keycard.
After those 3 jobs, Imogene ups the level a bit and says that we need to persuade the representatives of 2 separate rival companies over to our side. One of those 2 companies being Infinity Limited, a company we'll hear the name more of as they won't take kindly to this. He decides some leisure time is in order and heads over to the planet Denebola, as this planet is known to have a much better ship than the one he has now. Though before he can go and acquire that ship, we are blocked by the outro to episode 24.
And also,
I will be playing it next episode. You know what's funnier than 24? 25. Episode 25 continues with the landing on the planet Denebola, and we enter the place known as the Lair of the Mantis. Once you get through the Lair of the Mantis, there are some turrets at the end. Astra decides to destroy them for the XP. If you want to get through without triggering the turrets, type the word Tyrannus into the floor tiles. We get to the Batcave, the ship storage bay, and we send our new ship up to the surface. Wow. So of course, we go and claim our new ship, and we say goodbye to the frontier. Once we take the ship, we go and customize it to our liking with a nice time lapse. We have to perform something else for Imogene first, which is plant an arc device in another rival company's warehouse. After customizing the ship, he then heads back to business and reports to Imogene on planting the arc device, where she then gives us another promotion mission, which is steal a schematic from a chest in Trident Staryard. Trident being the same company that owned the cruise ship we murdered Larry Dombrowski on. For performing this mission, Astra will get to meet the head of operations at Ryujin, Ularu Chen. Although before performing this promotion mission, Astra did say he wants some leisure time, so he brings Sarah to one of the most famous attractions in the settled systems, an event called the Red Mile. Astra announces he's going to run the Red Mile and get a photo for the gram. We head down the lift to begin our Red Mile, yet we are blocked by the outro to episode 25. I'm going to end this episode here. Episode 26. That's 26 in French. Episode 26 starts at the beginning of our Red Mile. Without spoiling the creatures, we press the red button at the beacon at the end of the Red Mile, and we make it back in record time. And Astra decides that is enough leisure time for 2 episodes, so he heads straight to Trident Staryard to steal that schematic. Once we bring it back to Imogene, she says it's time to meet Ularu Chen. Ularu sends us to Sidonia to meet with a contact who claims they have information that Infinity Limited are working on their retaliation against Ryujin Industries for persuading their representatives away. So of course, to confirm the validity of this claim, we head straight to Sidonia, meet with the contact and listen to the slate that he gives us. The slate informs us that someone at Ryujin leaked information to Infinity Limited, that information being that Ryujin are leading the race to the invention of a device called the Internal Neuroamp, as part of an operation called Project Dominion. The slate also comes with a list of materials and instructions on how to make the device, as well as confirming that Infinity have already begun their own work on their own Internal Neuroamp. Although, not everything they would need to build an internal neuroamp would be included in the slate, as we'll find out later. Astra then reports to Ularu after Infinity's activity is confirmed in the slate. Ularu then seems to act surprised with this information, and then decides there and then that we need to bring the CEO of the entire company into this mission. So we meet Masako, the CEO, and she decides that unearthing this mole should be at the top of the list of Ryujin's priorities. and she tasks Astra with unveiling that mole. Astra goes straight to the head of security,
Dalton.
who decides that we need to investigate all of the board members of Ryujin individually and discreetly, and notes that it is quite different for investigating Ularu though. To investigate Ularu, we have to meet an off-the-books hacker named Nyx, who can scan the data on Ularu's computer, providing we take a device to Ularu's computer and extract that encrypted information first. Though as we get to the place where we'll meet Nyx, we are blocked by the outro to episode 26. Next episode! Episode 27. Episode 27 begins in Ryujin Tower on our way to meet Nyx again. We do meet Nyx, who tells us a secretive way to get into Ryujin's executive floor, and of course gives us the device we need to plug into and extract the data from Ularu's computer with. So, we sneak into Ryujin Tower using that secret route, manage to get to Ilara's office, download the data, and sneak out through a vent. We can't read the data ourselves, so we need to give it to Nyx, and Nyx tells us everything that's on there. He tells us that the data confirms that it was Imogene Salzo who leaked Project Dominion to Infinity Limited. Though we weren't meant to look at the data early, so we go and give the information to Dalton as well, who also confirms the same. Imogene Salzo. Dalton, of course, demands that we bring Imogene in for questioning from her office. Although Imogene was onto us and she fled the scene and went into hiding. It's a good thing that her assistant knows where she is at all times, as she tells us that Imogene went to hide with the Sioka Syndicate, a syndicate that belongs to a rat at the top of Neon's ladder, Benjamin Bayou. We go and tell Dalton that Imogene has fled and gone to hide with the syndicate, and Dalton says we can't go and get Imogene from the hideout on our own, we have to go and get permission from Benjamin Bayou himself. Isn't that great? Though as we meet with Mr. Bayou, we are blocked by the outro to episode 27.
Next episode.
Episode 28. Episode 28 begins in a private room of the Astral Lounge, where we meet Benjamin Bayou and he gives permission to enter the hideout of the Sioka Syndicate. So of course we head straight to the hideout, which has an entrance inside a fridge at the back of a dead restaurant. We find Imogene still in hiding there and we confront her. She denies being the mole and actually provides us with proof that it was Ularu who used the early prototype of the internal neuroamp to coerce Imogene into leaking Project Dominion to Infinity Limited. I end up agreeing with her to bring her evidence back to Ryujin and leave her there rather than arrest her outright. However, instead of giving the evidence to Dalton as we should have, Astra heads straight to Ularu to ask her to confess to these crimes, in exchange to give her the evidence to do with as she will. Ularu actually admits to coercing Imogene, but says that she had Imogene leak a fake Project Dominion, so Infinity would never be able to get their hands on a real internal neuroamp. So we keep our word and give Imogene's evidence to Ularu, who will inevitably destroy the evidence, essentially feeding Imogene to the corporate wolves. We also lie in our report to Dalton, telling him that we couldn't find Imogene, and that we found extra evidence against Imogene proving that it was her rather than Ularu. Dalton believes us and then informs us the CEO Masako wants to see us on the research and development floor. As we arrive to meet Masako, we also meet Vina Kalra, the mind behind Project Dominion itself. We arrive as they are receiving news of ecliptic mercenaries raiding one of Ryujin's outposts and stealing the final crucial ingredient for the internal neuroamp, which is a mineral known as rothosite. Masako decides to send Astra alone to teach those ecliptic a lesson, which is not a bad decision. We dispose of those ecliptic with ease and find evidence that it was the CEO of Infinity Limited, Lucas Drexler, that hired these ecliptic mercenaries and specifically ordered them to leave no one alive. I'd say that's a pretty dumb move on his part, and we also find a trace of where the rothosite was sent. We track it to the clinic orbiting the planet Deepala, and it is on Deepala where we are blocked by the outro to episode 28.
Where I'm going to end this episode.
Episode 2999, this is the police. Episode 29 begins where we enter the clinic and we steal back the stolen rothosite. Whilst there, we also find out that the fake Project Dominion Ularu leaked has led to multiple deaths of patients as Infinity rush their efforts to create their own internal neuroamp. Nevertheless, we bring the rothosite back to Vina, who gets straight to work on finishing the prototype. Masako also tells us that she's called a conference meeting to out Imogene as the mole to the rest of Ryujin's board members, as well as her plans to deal with Infinity Limited, who have got more brazen with each attack. We get a brief on the meeting beforehand with Dalton, and then we get straight to it. Masako announces Imogene as the mole, and then announces a surprise plan to have the internal neuroamp implanted into Astra's head and have him infiltrate Infinity's headquarters in New Atlantis and destroy them from within. Of course we obey and head down to Vina to have the procedure done. It works as intended, and we head back to Masako and Ularu, who greet us with a brief on the layout of Infinity's headquarters. They also tell us specifically where to go for our targets, to dissolve Infinity Limited as a company altogether. Ularu then requests that we speak to her on our own, so we follow her to her office, and she tells us her plans to replace Masako as CEO altogether, as she doesn't agree with Masako's ideals and wants to change the direction of the company. To do this, whilst infiltrating Infinity's headquarters, Ularu wants Astra to plant a virus on a computer that will corrupt Infinity's company data, but will also incriminate Masako to be involved. Of course, Astra agrees and heads with haste to Infinity's headquarters, where we are blocked by the outro to episode 29, where I'm going to end this episode. And the final episode of this recap, episode 30. Episode 30 begins with entering Infinity's headquarters and heading straight up to a restricted area as soon as we're left alone. We find a way to break into Lucas Drexler's office and plant a virus on his computer. To make the mission easier, Astra was briefed that he could trigger a gas leak to force most of the security out of the building. After a series of attempts, Astra manages to trigger the gas leak.
Gas leak detected. All non-essential personnel must evacuate the building.
And then can stalk the security from above and eliminate them. We then steal the prototype of the internal neuroamp Infinity was working on, making the message clear that you do not fuck with Ryujin Industries. To ensure that Infinity dissolves as a company, Astra then gives all of the evidence of Infinity's illegal activities to mainstream media, including the data that incriminates Masako. We then report to Masako, as though our intentions were not impure. She states that she did not like the way that Astra handled its security in Infinity, and likes it even less when it is announced that her downfall shall fall in line with Infinity's.
Impossible. You set me up.
Masako never saw it coming, and we report to Ularu that her plan worked beautifully. Ularu then orders us to persuade the rest of the board members to side with her when she announces her intent to replace Masako as CEO. As we attempt to start convincing them, we are blocked by the outro to episode 30.
Remember, we want nothing to do with acquiring Infinity Ltd.
Yes.
I'll remember.
And that is it for episodes 16 to 30 of my Starfield series. If you enjoyed this recap, be sure to give the video a like and check out the full series to see things that you missed. I really appreciate all of you that decide to click on these videos. And remember, always have fun.